All right. So welcome everybody back for another session. So this session is going to be on domains and DNS. Pretty interesting topic, I think. Let me just share my screen. Yeah. As I was saying, apologies in advance. This presentation may be a bit overwhelming for a few reasons. Number one, the chapter's fairly short. Number two, I didn't have as much time, so I wanted to make some slides. But I will try to do some pseudo demonstrations maybe that might help with um, attaching these concepts to something concrete. Um, so during the session, what I'm hoping to convey is like a rudimentary understanding of DNS, so the domain name system, what fully qualified domain name is, and then how to configure your DNS server. Um, Maybe as a way to reframe this section, I was kind of thinking about this earlier this morning, I think it was last session, Rhett showed us how networking worked. So in the sense that, you've got some IP address for your server, and then you have a proxy and it redirects traffic to kind of endpoints behind the server to, or your RStudio instance, your Jupyter Notebook, etc. So that was kind of networking for like incoming traffic. And in a certain sense, like what we're talking about here is another form of networking where you have a URL, um, and then you want to hook that URL to an IP address. Um, and so how then to do that? So first, it would be helpful to kind of understand a few core concepts. I think people make this analogy a lot, but I think it happens to be a really good analogy, at least from my mental model, is you can kind of think of um, name servers, and I'll explain what these are, as kind of the phone books of the internet. So the way the internet works is, you'll type in, um, you know, example.com, as a diagram that I've copied from the book shows. And then your computer will go to a DNS, a name server that is sort of like a telephone book. It will, as I understand it, basically attempt to look up, like at the end of the day, what you need is an IP address. So it'll take the domain name that you've given, and then it's going to try to find the IP address. But I think the way namespace servers actually, or same name servers actually work, is there's kind of a collection of name servers, and so basically you'll contact your name server. It'll say, you're asking it basically, where can I find, what's the IP address for example.com? If it has it in its kind of dictionary of kind of domains and IP addresses, it'll give it to you. If it doesn't, then it'll contact another name server and it'll continue down the line until eventually, there'll be resolution that you'll get from this kind of set of queries, you'll get an IP address that comes back to you. So, name server basically will receive your URL, look up a domain name, find the IP address for the domain name, and feed you back the IP address so that your client, whether that's a browser or something else, can make its merry way to the IP address of the thing that you're looking for. Um, Right. So that's on domain names, how domain name system works. So the name system is basically like you have these domain names that are convenient for users to type. We're not going to remember these numbers, at least I don't. And so instead you have this, and so the domain name system is basically this mapping between the domain names, and then an eventual IP address. Oops. Did I skip a slide here? Ah, yeah. And I was making this analogy so in a sense, like this domain name system is kind of like, to my mind, a little bit like networking in the sense like you're connecting to something, in this case, a name server, and then name server is kind of like redirecting your traffic in a certain sense to an IP address. So that's kind of where I came up with the analogy of this DNS system as something like like networking. Um, Now, domain names, as you see them, can kind of be deconstructed into a few different components. So here at the beginning, we have this. Oh yeah, that's right. So reproduce here. You have the root. You have the root domain. It can be deconstructed in a few different pieces. So you have kind of the root domain, which would be example.com. So that's what we were looking for. And then so you could have, uh, Arthur.com, Josh.com, Diana.com, etc. Would be root domains. Um, or in the case of the book, we've got the do4ds02.com. And so that can further be decomposed into two parts. A top-level domain, so .com is a top-level domain. There are also lots of other top-level domains like the dot um, was it posit is it posit dot co, right? So co is another top-level domain. You may have top-level domains that are country domains. Um, you may have other ones that are, .biz or things like that. Um, and then within those top level domains, you have a domain name. So you can have example.com, example.us, example.co, example.be, etc. So the domain name exists within the top level domain. And then additionally, you can have before that a subdomain. So for example, if you want to have a URL be, like blog.example.com. And so actually www ends up being a subdomain, just a really popular subdomain. I think the book has a little aside where it explains that they thought that, at the beginning of the internet that it would be useful to have the www subdomain for web pages and then to have, I think it was like a mail server or something like that, as a different subdomain. So they want to separate those two out. Not proved so useful in the end, but www remains. As a subdomain, but you could have any number of subdomains. So if you have a domain name, imagine that you own example.com, then you can have any number of subdomains. You could have, blog.example.com, hello.example.com, et cetera, right? So you can have control the subdomain, which could be useful. So we talked about how, I guess this is a little bit about the infrastructure of the internet. So we've got how name servers work, this domain name system where basically we're trying to resolve we provide a domain name or a URL, which has a component that's a domain name, and these domain name servers are returning back to us an IP address so that we can reach the resource on the web. Um, Talked about the different components of this. You may be wondering then, like, how do you get a domain name? So there are basically kind of like two steps that I think are maybe tied tightly together. Um, first is you buy, or actually it's really more rent, a domain name, and then as you're doing that, you register with it's called ICANN. I forget what it stands for, but it's I think um, a nonprofit organization that keeps this master registry, I think, and some information about the people that own different domains on the internet. So what you can do is you can go to different domain name providers. You can go to GoDaddy or maybe if you're using one of the big cloud providers, uh, they might also have a DNS or sorry, a domain name purchasing mechanism. I know this is the case for AWS. AWS has the Route 50, so Route 53 service. So if you're spinning up a bit of infrastructure and you want to have a domain name, so that you can have your your cloud instance, your compute instance, or your website be reachable. With the domain name, you can purchase it through Amazon, and they take care of all the necessary for you. Or you can go and buy your own. And there are lots of providers like GoDaddy, or I think my favorite, and also the author's favorite, Namecheap. This is not meant to be advertising. This is simply just something that I happen to know. Um, and you can go and search for your domain name. So let's say like Josh Hersey, and it will search, and then you can see what's available, and you can see what how much everything costs. Top popular top level domains will be more expensive. So .com I think will tend to be more expensive. Although interesting, very interesting. You'll have a yearly rate where you're kind of like you'll control that for a certain number of years, and then it'll get. I think you can have it be auto renewed. Um, More obscure domain names are perhaps less expensive, or sorry, domains within more obscure top level domains are typically cheaper. Looks like AI is very popular right now because if Josh, if you wanted to grab this, you've got to fork over some serious cash. Um, uh, yeah, I don't know why two is anyway, maybe I'm missing something. Yeah, XYZ, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can purchase your domain name. And then
Um,
as you go through the
Question
process of
for
getting it,
you,
you
Arthur,
register
if
with
I
ICANN. Yes, go ahead. Mhm.
can. Kind of outside of the book, but just out of curiosity, do you know who gets to decide what the domain subtypes are? Like I know there are some national ones like .ca for Canada, .uk for United Kingdom, so on. But then there's also like dot non-country ones like .net, .org, .fun. Like, can you just make up anything and
That's a good question,
use
Josh.
that?
I don't know that I have the answer. So
Okay.
here's what I think I understand, but then I remember the book, I believe, had an aside on this. So I think ICANN is probably responsible for that, for like creating the domain, the top level domains, and then I don't know how they get. I think what happens, it's sort of like, at least this is the case in the United States. I don't know how it is in Canada and more developed places. But let's say you want to go to a concert, and like all the tickets get bought up by these how do you call it, ticket selling outfits, and so they'll just buy all of the tickets, and then you end up buying the tickets from them. I think that's kind of the way it works with domain names. Um, I could be mistaken.
Okay.
Where, like they get created, I guess, by ICANN, and then they get bought up. Like lots of things get bought up by these sites like Namecheap and others. I guess. The book I
Okay.
think had an aside, and let's see if we can actually find it really quickly. I think they're talking about there's an explosion of where ICANN opened up. Oh, here we go. When the web first launched, there were a few top level domains. ICANN controls how domains are assigned. Okay, all right, so that answers that part, I guess. In 2013, ICANN allowed people and organizations to register their own top level domains. That's why we have these weird ones. Um, I don't know if they've since reined things in, or if it still continues to be chaos. I don't know how
Okay.
that works. I also don't know like how it works where um, how these, let's say like country domains get allocated, because I know some of them get bought up. Like I could be mistaken about this, but I seem to remember that YouTube would be like a U dot or U2.be, and I think BE would be Belgium or something like that. Their country domain, and so YouTube was paying for the right to have that neat little domain. Um, And there have been these like contentious issues where you'll have these nice, well, popular top level domains that are actually country domains, and they just get bought up by private outfits. I don't know how all of that gets managed, if it's just by the open marketplace or if there's some political or other wrangling with ICANN behind the scenes. That's an interesting thing. Feels like there ought to be a book on this. It would be kind of an interesting nerdy book, or at least
Yeah.
you know, long form essay.
My only contribution to this, which is not technically interesting, but more minutia, .io, like the popular subtype, I learned is not for input output or anything. It's for the Indian Ocean. But you'll just see it for like tech
Yes,
company.io because it sounds like a techie input output thing. But technically for the British Indian Ocean territory,
interesting.
I think.
Very cool. Yeah, but I mean, so in the past, I'd gotten some domain names, and I seem to remember, like during the process, if I add this to the carts, and I won't go through the process of paying for it, but as you do, there's one additional step that happens as you're purchasing it. The domain name, I don't know what the formal name is for this, uh, like DNS provider, I guess is what it is. There'll be a step where you actually register with ICANN. So I had to put down my name and some other identifying details so that ICANN can see who owns what. But then the DNS providers, I think they can also, how do they call it? Not scrub, but basically kind of like obfuscate some of those fields with ICANN. I don't know how that works, but that's what one thing you can do. So this is how you would do it with, like, let's say what's called like a third party DNS provider like Namecheap or GoDaddy or others. I've done this with AWS before. I'm sure behind the scenes they're just, or I imagine that behind the scenes they're going with some other provider, or maybe they've got their own outfit, but it's kind of a similar process that you go through in order to get your domain. So that would be like how you get it and how you register it. And then once you have it, the question then becomes like, how do you how do you make it so that people can reach your website? Like, how do you basically link these two bits of information, that we saw in the diagram from the book? Like, how do you link it so that the DNS providers and namespace servers, like this information gets captured by them and then like propagated out to all of the namespace servers across the world, so that when someone types, like josh-percy.com, that they get redirected to your IP address. Like, how does that work? So what you have to do is you have to go in with your DNS provider and create these kind of technical entries. I've done this on AWS, so you can do it with AWS's I think it's called Route 53 or 50 something. I think it's 53, Route 53, where you can do this, or with your DNS provider. I've done this with Namecheap as well. Um, and there are a few different ways you can redirect traffic here. So they'll have different types of entries. One where you can say, it's a point with an so there's an A type entry and a C name. I think those are the principal ones. At least those are the ones I've worked with. An A name, an A type entry would be basically say, traffic that comes in on this path, directed directly to this target. And then CNAME, I think, is something like, things that come in. Well, in this case, it's like anything that comes in with like www.example.com, route it to example.com. So you can make these exchanges, and it's, I guess, basically kind of like networking at the level of the DNS provider. So it's just saying like anything that comes in looking for this thing, route it to this other thing, and you can use certain different flags. And I'm actually going to have to go back to the book because I forget what these are. Um, yeah, the A records point to your IP address, whether it's the version 4 or version 6. CNAME records are alias subdomains to another record. So if you have or expect people are going to come to your website through different subdomains, with or without www. Maybe you have other prior subdomains and you want them all to be routed to the same place. You can use a CNAME. Um, okay, this one I use. NS records tell the DNS server to forward the request to another namespace server. Okay, yeah. probably won't be using that. Um, I can show kind of really quickly one thing I've done. So this is more to do like a little demo, and this is probably about it's approaching the end of where I have material. So I'd set up for work this little kind of like Quarto training website where I have this really strange URL, and you can see I've got my subdomain zem hyphen HBS, and then my domain name is susotraining.com. And really what this is behind the scenes is I just have um, I have this GitHub repo right here that is it's a Corda website, so it serves up a static page. Um, and I've got my I think I may have done this the dumb way. I don't know if yeah, it looks like I don't have a GitHub action for actually publishing this. But anyway, still like I'm publishing using GitHub pages. So that all of the I think it's so that all the contents of the docs folder right here get published as a website, and so that I could link GitHub up with the domain. What I did is I went into Namecheap, I purchased oh, this is the wrong one, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Oh, no, this is the right one. I was looking in the wrong place, and of course it logged me out. All right, let me log back in off camera. Um, In the meantime, I guess so. I had to do two steps to connect this. Um, pardon me.
So,
Authenticating while
sorry,
go ahead.
one question in the example from the book. So, yeah, so the path for the blog. So you have to know the IP address for the like the main domain of your subdomain so that you can send traffic to that domain if from your domain.
So the way I thought I understood this, Diana, maybe I misunderstood this, is that like I guess you have like example.com and if people come in just in example.com or www.example.com, then they'll go to this IP address, which imagine is like server one, right? And then if they type in blog, it would route them to exactly this IP address, which would be another server. So I think in this case, let's say you go to Google Drive or you go to Gmail or so on and so forth. It's all part of google.com, but then they have their own subdomains which probably sit and you want traffic routed to a different server depending on which thing you hit. That was my understanding of this, but perhaps that understanding is wrong. Because these are both A-type entries that point to directly to an IP address.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And this
okay.
is just this is just like rerouting. This is an alias. It's rerouting it to um, to this. So I guess this is like this at
Oh,
right here is an exact match. So if it's example.com, it comes here. If it's
that's
www at example.com, then it's going to be rerouted to example.com, which in turn is this. If it's blog.example.com, then it goes to this IP address.
okay. Okay, so but that table is only for example.com or is it for blog.example.com?
So I think it's for your domain. It's for your domain of example.com. And
Okay.
so it's basically a
Oh,
table that maps for different subdomains within example.com.
oh, okay, okay, okay. I get it now.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the star is the asterisk is anything else would get routed back to example.com.
Okay.
That's at least my understanding.
Thank you, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. But yeah, when I was setting this site up right here, I had to go and I acquired the susotraining.com, and then I went into yeah, I'll just go into domain list. Nothing super sensitive here, I think. Um, yeah, let's go to manage. Yeah, I think manage and advanced DNS. I did do a lot of Googling to figure out how this works. And then basically I've got this kind of table right here, where I'm just saying so I have a CNAME record right here, which says for anything with the subdomain Zim HBS, route it to this right here. This is what do you call it? GitHub had told me to do. And then I had to come into GitHub pages. So I came to my repo, went to GitHub pages, and apart from the usual stuff of saying where to find the static site, I had to come down and provide this custom domain information. So provide this custom domain information here. Um, and then as the author rightly points out, wait for some reasonably long period of time for things to propagate, during which indeterminate period of time you're left working, wondering like, did it work? Um, and then eventually it hooked up. Yeah. Um,
And in that example, Arthur, so you're using your entire GitHub IO, yeah, your entire domain from GitHub for that specific site. But I guess you could also use like a subdomain in your GitHub IO for that and then having like something else. But then you will have to configure something here and also something else
yeah.
in
I'm
GitHub.
glad you asked, Diana, because I honestly don't I'm trying to think if there are other sites that I have. So the strange thing is I think I have another site. Yeah, let me just come here. I have
Yeah,
lots
'cause,
of
I mean,
cruff.
what I've been doing with my GitHub IO is just like adding folders inside, and then I just put like presentations or something like that. Uh, and then yeah, like each folder has kind of like its own content. But then I have no idea how it will work if you use a custom domain. Hmm.
Yeah, let's see. Because this one, all right. So if you follow this URL, okay, never mind. Okay, maybe you're right. I think I was lazy at this point, and so I just used their domain instead of mine. Okay, never mind. Never mind. I was hoping to show a case where I had two that were pointing to, but yeah, I'm glad you raised that issue because I was looking at this before the call and I was kind of thinking the same thing as you. Is yeah, because indeed it's pointing to that rather than like some specific it's the whole thing instead of just like one within. And I wonder how you would do that. I thought I had a case where I'd done that, but apparently I don't. Hmm. I guess this is research. Um,
Now we have homework.
exactly. And this is a site that no one depends on, so I think I may tinker with this and see if I can redirect it or I also did this in an era before ChatGPT, so probably with LLMs, or I should say before LLMs. So I think now I can probably ask an LLM and not have to you know look for the 15th page on a Google search. Yeah, and unfortunately, I didn't have queued up anything on AWS. I was meaning to show something, but I don't have anything, and I don't want to make you guys wait. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had for this. I still have a lot that I need to learn here, but this is the little that I think I know, and the one thing that I did for the static site. Um, Indeed, yeah, I'm wondering now how how I could do this better. So Diana, you're saying that you have one single repo that has subfolders or
Yes. Yeah.
okay.
Uh, yeah. And yeah, I just keep adding folders to to the GitHub IO repo, and yeah, they get a different, like for instance, uh, uh, yeah, they just get a different, they have the target thing, and they just like in the middle, they just change the folder, uh, and then yeah, you can have like different subfolders for your site.
Interesting. Interesting, interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. I'm sure there should be a way to do that, so that you only point to a subfolder in your GitHub IO. That way, you don't use the entire thing only for.
Yep.
Yeah,
One site, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But all these topics are super interesting, and like one thing that the book doesn't mention it, and I also think that it's super wild is all the algorithms that the like that the different networks use to actually like to update their network tables and propagate these domain names. Because I don't think there's only one way to do it. I think people have implemented like multiple algorithms, and you can have like a specific algorithm for your sub network or your LAN or your whatever, and have it like yeah do this like updating thing in a different way.
Huh.
And it's crazy because it's only like packets, like small packets of information. And yeah, that's I don't know. It's yeah, it's crazy learning how the internet works.
Yeah. Had you done much of this for work or for other things? I
Not
guess
at all.
I guess your experience is like mine with GitHub Pages then.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Okay.
not at all. I took some networking classes in college, but
Oh,
I
okay.
remember I didn't like them.
Yeah, this is something where I definitely feel like I need to learn. I need to learn more. Um, this is going to be a break, kind of like a winter break task is figuring out how to improve this situation here. What about you, Joshua? Do you have any experience with the
Nothing major. I have like a Quarto web page on my GitHub pages as well, but very basic. I'm trying to look at your GitHub, Diana, to see how you configured yours. It seems like you're just adding folders for different, each folder kind of appends a different, add something to your like URL, and then that becomes like a different area of your web page.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
So you don't need to use like the docs folder as like the default Quarto GitHub pages documentation
Yeah,
says to
no.
do.
Uh, I I guess you can do that inside one of the subfolders.
Okay.
Yeah. Although
Okay.
I don't have in I haven't done I haven't uploaded like one what I will do if I have a quarter presentation, I just upload the HTML. Like I don't do anything. I render it and then I just upload the HTML. I don't know if yeah. Maybe I'm sure I'm doing it completely wrong and I never look at the
No, I mean
No, no,
it's
that's
definitely
good.
a way to do it, but like the only thing so I did that actually for this project where I was doing exactly the same thing. I uploaded the site. So if you look in this docs folder, it's everything that Quarto generates. And some of the problems, I guess, are you end up with this law, like the large, what is it called? The Git large file storage, the LFS, the Git
Mhm.
LFS problem, where some of these things get pretty big. Um, that's one thing where like my local repo starts to be a little slow, and then I have this LFS storage issue. One thing that I've taken to doing is using GitHub Actions to deploy the site. So, for example, that's what John Harmon is doing for what do you call it for this group. Um, but I've not done that often enough because sometimes it's just like you're saying, Diana. It's like I just have a presentation. I don't have time, or I don't have like a reliable template yet. Yeah. Oh, actually, here we go. Create CNAME. So this is what I was looking for. I think this is a file you had to add, I had to add here. This is somewhere in the docs where you had to add just a CNAME file. I was looking for that in the root of the project and I wasn't finding it. But I guess it has to be in the folder where you're pointing GitHub projects. And so in my case, that's docs. So I'd added the CNAME file. That's somewhere in the GitHub docs, I think. But yeah, I guess I'm starting to move towards the GitHub Actions, but it's a slow move. Um, Particularly since when you're doing that, you end up having to uh, manage other stuff too. If your slides are built with R, let's say, then you have to install R and stuff like that.
Mm.
Like that becomes a bit more of a burden. Like this one project here, yeah, GitHub workflows. So I wrote an R package to create core to package documentation websites for Stata packages. It's very obscure. I think I may have shown this in the past, but I mean, this is among other things. Like, so there's a publish step as well, but then I'm also managing all of this, like installing all of the system packages, because every time you use GitHub Actions, you're basically creating an ephemeral environment where you have an OS and you have to do all of the like Linux administration and um, then all of your little steps right here. And then the final thing is I'm using somebody else's deploy to GitHub pages a runner that is just a black box that does the thing, and I have no idea how it works, except sometimes when I'll push a commit or something like that, and then I'll get an error from GitHub pages, and I'll learn that something has been deprecated, and then I need to update my version of the runner. Yeah, which is always fun. And of course, you learn about that when you desperately need something to be done fast.
I'm surprised that that is still free, because like they are. I mean, for every GitHub action that runs, like they have to spin up at least a small amount of server like somewhere and run the entire thing. Like, and now that it's getting popular, like I don't know, it's great that it's free, but yeah, like I don't know how much it actually costs.
So I think it's kind of a freemium model where you get stuff for free, and that's the gateway drug, for these kinds of things. And then, like if I imagine if you're doing a like CI/CD pipeline or running tests in the cloud, then you're going to blow past your compute minutes. I think you get something like 400 minutes of compute per month. There's like some amount of free compute per month. And if you're just maintaining an open source package, if you're a hobbyist like me maintaining an open source package, it's not, like that number of minutes is basically infinite. It's like for all practical purposes is infinity minutes per month. But if you're doing something in a corporate setting, then yeah, you're gonna blow through that pretty fast, I think. So it's not free. It's
Okay,
free
okay,
and
okay.
not
That
free.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Yeah.
Anyway, if I can reverse engineer what I'd done, the more fuller description for this, I'll see if I can send it out. And also, if anyone figures out, including me, how to do something better here, yeah, I would love to see that solution. I'm going to be searching for it now because what do they call it? Like I guess I'll call this like embarrassment driven development.
Thank you so much, Arthur. This was great.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys
thanks
so
so
much.
much.
Thanks for putting up with me. Yeah. Well, do we have I guess for administrative things, I'll do